back for episode 3 of the Hoop Life Productions podcast. I'm Chance Fry with my good buddy AJ Hepler. AJ, do you care to explain why we've been gone for 3 weeks?
All right, so as everybody knows, 2020 has not been the most.
Nope.
Most.
Not a good year.
Yeah, not a great year. And well, I live with 2 roommates, and basically I was exposed to COVID-19 through my roommate's girlfriend, so I had to quarantine for 2 weeks. So that's 2 weeks, and then as soon as that was up, I went back to work one day and started feeling COVID symptoms, and I had to go get tested and was off for a few days. Fortunately, I ended up testing negative and probably just a really bad flu for a few days, but yeah, it's been a rough 3.5 weeks, so
moral of the story is 2020 has been a bad year. AJ had a bad few weeks.
Yeah.
But we're excited to get episode 3 out to you guys. For today, I think we're going to do best and worst deals of free agency, and then winners, losers, and then we're going to talk about the Harden situation a little bit. If you guys follow me on Instagram, I made somewhat of a controversial post about Harden. I think a lot of people can agree with me, but not a lot of people are willing to put stuff out like that. But yeah, that's pretty much what we're doing today.
Yeah, so who do you want to start with? Do you want to start with Houston since you were just talking about Harden?
I think Houston had a very underrated offseason. I think the addition of Christian Wood is one of the more overlooked offseason acquisitions. And then obviously Boogie Cousins. It's a low risk, high reward. Right? I mean, at his best, he's an all-star player. It's a 1-year contract. I think it was around the minimum too. So
yeah.
I mean, it really can't hurt anything. Like, Boogie hasn't played basketball in a year. I'm sure he's healthy and ready to get back at it. So I liked what Houston did in the offseason.
Yeah, what Houston did actually, not in terms of like team structure, like the players that they went out and got, but what they did during the offseason free agency kind of reminded me of what the Lakers did last year. They had traded for Anthony Davis, and it's basically LeBron, AD, and Rob Pelinka. So they had to figure out what to do, and Rob Pelinka did a really good job of just like getting the best available guy at last chance and really putting a good team around them that ended up winning a championship. I mean, I remember when Russ was out, it seemed like it was Harden and everyone else was leaving, and they went and got Boogie, who could not end up working out because of his injury history.
Right. If I'm James Harden, this is honestly the best roster I've ever had. So
yeah.
I'm not sure. I get that he's tired of losing. A lot of that comes back to him and him not like producing in the big games. But I think if they get him back, they can really make some noise in the West. I don't think they're better than the Lakers.
No.
The Lakers still had the best offseason, I think, for what they had last year, and they had an NBA champion. I think they got a lot better. So
yeah, the West it's still really stacked, and there's a lot of parity.
I would say there's like 12 teams in the West that are legitimately good.
But I think the Lakers took that step that kind of made them that team that's like the Lakers and everybody else. Like,
right.
Not that
it wasn't like that last year.
Not that anybody else can't win or can't compete with them, but they're the odds-on favorite. Even if they didn't win last year, I still think they'd be my odds-on favorite after their signings. So
yeah. I just think the Lakers have set themselves up to three-peat. I know that might be a hot take, but you think about this year, they get the best roster easily, and then next year they're going to have, I think it's really only AD, LeBron, and Kentavious on contract for next offseason. So they're even going to have cap space next season. And you think about guys like DeRozan. He's talked about wanting to come to L.A. He might take a smaller contract than maybe he's used to. And then Kyle Lowry is another guy. Maybe they want to team up in L.A. Yeah, so I really like what the Lakers did.
Because they're in a situation where, I'm never one that likes to predict the aging of LeBron, but if they're in a situation, we'll say in 2 years after this year, where LeBron isn't the best player in the league, maybe he's still top 5 to 10, but at that point, Anthony Davis might be the best player in the league. He might be, good enough to lead them to a championship with LeBron James. So they set themselves up for, if in 2 years, if LeBron is still a monster, then they're still in a great position. If not, they still have Anthony Davis with LeBron James who's going to be a 10 to 15 best player. So
Right, and then the additions of Montrezl Harrell, Dennis Schroeder. I think that was one of the more notable ones besides the re-signing of Anthony Davis.
yeah, it's interesting because the thing with the Clippers last year is they had what people would argue is the two best six men in the league with Lou Williams and Harrell, and now I think
The
with the
roles have
step
switched,
back
yeah.
that Lou took and the step forward that Schroeder took, I think the Lakers now have the two best six men in the league. And I know that LeBron was on. Is it Jefferson's podcast, the Road Tripping?
Yeah, road tripping with
Yeah,
Channing Frye and Richard
and
Jefferson.
LeBron basically said that Harrell was going to come off the bench. So it'll be interesting see what Dennis does.
I think Dennis starts. To be honest,
Yeah.
there's really no other point guard on that team that is anywhere near his level. And I think he takes another step, helps him get another title, maybe another one next year. I think they're set up to win the next 2 years, really, unless somebody makes a huge jump, really. But so yeah, we've gone over the Houston Rockets, and Los Angeles Clippers. That's who I thought had really the best off seasons. But another team was Atlanta, bringing in Bogdanovich. They brought in Rondo, they brought in Chris Dunn, and then they brought in Gallinari. So I would say they got the most help from what they had the previous year.
They took the biggest step forward, and
Yeah, exactly.
they went from a team that was. I don't want to say that they didn't have any talent besides Trae Young, because they had guys like John Collins and guys like Cam
unproven
Reddish,
talent that's just trying to figure it out.
you know. But they went from that to, I don't know, is it a top 10 roster in the league just in terms of talent? Like, I don't know. It late.
I don't think yet.
No.
I think it has potential to be.
Yeah,
But I would say it's a playoff team in the East. I don't think they're up there with Philly and Milwaukee and Miami and Boston, but I think this year will be the start of them making some noise, and really there's even they're set up for the next decade, really.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any way. I mean, you think about it. The only holes that Trae Young has in his game are the things that Rajon Rondo is excellent at. Except for passing, Trae Young is a great passer, but young Rondo, prime Rondo, was a great defender. I'm sure he can help Trae Young, because Rondo's not a big guy either. He's not Trae Young size, but he can help him in that department.
Right, I think they've pretty much filled every hole they had, right? I mean,
Yeah, the only
Chris Dunn was honestly my favorite of the signings. You can talk about Bogdanovich and
yeah.
Gallinari as the best players, but Chris Dunn is like, he's pretty much the polar opposite of Trae Young, and he can guard literally anybody. He would have got my vote for all defensive team last year.
Chris Dunn, along with some others like Drew Holiday, maybe Patrick Beverly, like he's up there with the top defenders at the guard position in the league. People just don't realize because he's subpar at
He's
every
not
other
flashy.
part of basketball.
He's not flashy. He's not going to put up the numbers, and that's really how guys get recognized by the fans.
Yeah.
By us, like an analyst, like we notice these kinds of things, but as like a typical fan, you're not going to think of Chris Dunn as a guy that I really want on my team. But
Yeah.
we like that for Atlanta for sure.
Until Bogdanovich came to Atlanta, I along with some other people had Chris Dunn at the 2 starting. I mean, he's not Cam Reddish offensively. He's not any of those guys offensively, but he would have helped them so well at the 2, to balance out what Trae lacks in. But obviously, with the signing of Bogdanovich, I mean, he's gonna start. But
Yeah, I could definitely see a lineup of Trae at the point, Bogdanovich at the 2. Maybe Gallinari comes off the bench, or it's Cam Reddish or John.
as a
the 3 is the
As a Thunder fan, I can tell you that Gallo is, as he's aged, he's really struggled to play the 3 just because he can't move or defend at that position anymore.
But he's like a perfect modern day 4 though. So
Yeah, I think Collins will play the 4 because he's earned that right in Atlanta, and we saw that he does not strive at the 5. So I think Hunter's gonna be at the 3. And then Collins and Capella or Okongwu, I don't know. They do whatever they want.
I think it's
there.
Capella at first. Okongwu eventually takes that spot, but yeah, and you want to talk about their bench. Their bench might be one of the best in the league as well.
Yeah.
So Atlanta for sure on the rise now.
playoff team?
I had them as in my projected Eastern Conference standings. I had them at 8. I think it's really
Between
up to
and-
them and Washington.
Yep.
And most people I heard have Washington over Atlanta, so I guess I'm different in that aspect.
I guess the case for Washington is just experience. I mean,
Right.
Bradley Beal has been there with John Wall. Westbrook's been there. I guess that's it. But, they have 2 vets.
I mean, yeah, their backcourt. Is it the best in the NBA with Steph and Clay out? It might be.
Yeah, probably.
Harden, Wall.
In
if
terms
Wall's
of
back in,
talent,
so,
yes, because you look at Dame and CJ. CJ's not quite either of those guys, but they're they're proven too.
Just the question with them is the fit at first with those guys. I think Russ in the last few seasons has struggled to fit alongside other stars, so it'll be interesting to see what a ball dominant Bradley Beal can do with him. But I really think their biggest flaw is going to be on the defensive end. I mean, last year I think they were ranked dead last in defense, and I didn't see them really fix any of that.
No,
So might be more of the same this year.
their best defender statistically is Davis Bertans.
Yeah,
And
he's subpar,
yeah,
maybe average.
Maybe average. He can defend at his position. He can defend guys like him, guys that sit out in the corner, and he's very good at that. But in terms of perimeter defense all around, he's not
Right.
locking anybody up, and neither is
The
rest of
offensive
them.
end isn't going to be a problem for this Washington team, but they're just going to have to outscore teams on any given night. And if they're having a bad shooting night, I don't see them really having too good of a chance to win.
Yeah, and I don't know if actually people don't realize this, but if you look at the statistics last year, that Washington offense was actually like all time great.
Yeah.
Like the points they put up and all of that,
Yeah.
which is surprising.
That's kind of the trend for the league as a whole, but
Yeah.
it's still a positive.
Yeah, so we'll see if Westbrook helps or hurts that. I don't know. 2 ball dominant guards. I don't know if Bradley Beal's naturally ball dominant or he was ball dominant because he was given the keys. So we'll see how
Yeah.
that works out.
Let's talk about what do we want? Let's talk about one of the more surprising deals, I would say, and that would be what was it? Besides Montrezl Harrell, that was the one that surprised me.
Yeah.
Going from the other side, really.
Yeah,
that one
yeah.
really surprised me, but I mean, Serge Ibaka, I guess, teaming up with Kawhi again. I really like that.
I
for
think
them.
that's exactly what they needed,
Right.
They seem to really break down in the bubble, which,
Yeah.
you can't really blame anybody for that. It's a
Right.
situation no one wanted to be in or expected to be in.
Right. Jokic, I would say, killed them.
Yeah.
And Montrezl Harrell was probably the biggest problem there.
Yeah.
And they got rid of Montrezl. Montrezl has value, I would say, in certain aspects. But Serge Ibaka at this point is definitely a better player and a better fit for this
But
team.
Trez in the locker room is an alpha type personality.
They had a lot of those.
They had a lot of those issues because of that.
Right.
You could tell that he left because I think he was rubbed the wrong way just by the way he spoke. And I think Serge Ibaka is the very opposite. He's a leader by example. I don't think he's going to do a lot of talking.
Right.
And he's perfect for them on and off the court. I think it's a great pick. Another one that really surprised me. I don't know if it surprised a lot of people. I didn't think Fred VanVleet was going to end up staying in Toronto.
Yeah.
Just because,
He was talking about getting a bag, and
yeah.
Toronto was willing to give it to him. They didn't pay anybody else, really, but I think it was important for them to bring him back.
Yeah, especially after they lost Gasol and Ibaka. So,
Right.
he's big.
Yeah,
for
Toronto's a
them.
team that I just don't see having a chance at a title last year. I mean, they made it to the East semis, right? It was a close series with Boston, but I just think their roster is aging a little bit. Maybe if Anunoby takes a step forward, Pascal takes a step forward, then maybe they have a shot. But I just didn't think they got better. Maybe they even got a little worse this offseason.
Oh, they definitely got worse. Just because we saw in the playoffs that they definitely have a ceiling without a Kawhi Leonard.
Right.
Siakam seemed like opposing defense is figured out. If we stop his spin move, there's not much he can do in
Right.
terms of that.
And honestly, I was surprised they did that good.
Yeah,
To
yeah,
be
they
honest,
did
like
better.
they hung in with a Celtics team that was, I mean, it's more talented than them. But would they get the 2 seed? I didn't have them being that good. So that was
Yeah.
quite a surprise. But I think they're the best coach team in the league with Nick Nurse. So
Yeah,
that'll take
Yeah.
you so far.
I agree.
But
You want to talk about some of the worst signings?
the worst, yeah. And here's the thing: for a lot of people have been bashing on my Pistons, but I just think we got guys that fit our culture. They're maybe overlooked, but I think we're going to be one of the best defensive teams, bringing in Jeremy Grant. And then our roster as a whole is really versatile. You can talk about the loss of Christian Wood, but he doesn't really fit Detroit. I think him going to Houston is a much better fit for him. I would have liked to have brought him back, but I think Plumlee, slightly overpaid, but it's not like it's an unmovable contract. And then Jeremy Grant, his value is right about $20 million, I would say.
I think Jeremy Grant is a lot better than people realize, and I think
Right.
he's really good for a. He's got that Detroit
He's been like
mentality.
a fourth or fifth option his whole career, but in Detroit he's going to be one of the top guys. So it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see what
He
he
took
does.
that step forward in Oklahoma City, but we had to, because of Paul George leaving and then having to get rid of Russ, and we were basically rebuilding right
Got a
then.
first round pick for him too. Of
Yeah,
course.
yeah,
Shocker.
of course. But he went from a team where he was, I don't know, he was third or fourth option on offense, and he was slowly getting better and better. I think by the end of that season, when we had Paul George 2 years ago, I think by the end of that season he was averaging like 16 a game,
Right.
and we sent him to.
And how many shots does he get? I mean, he's got to be
Yeah.
efficient.
Yeah, he's become quite the shooter. That was his problem. He was always raw and athletic and could defend because
That's
of
the
it.
key, man. That's
But
the key.
when he developed that shot, and then we sent him to Denver, and they were so deep last year. He by the end of the year, they started realizing, oh my God, this guy is.
Right.
I think he was taking a lot of Paul Millsap's minutes away at the end.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting. I mean, everyone has the green light in Detroit because there's not that guy, except for
Right.
Blake Griffin, and even him, he's coming off an injury. So
Or I could just see us being like a team that maybe surprises some people this year.
I definitely see Detroit as a team that went from, Pistons are on TV, who's watching, to
Right.
we're gonna watch them because they might not. There's a chance Detroit ends up with
This is the
5 to 8 more wins.
Like, this is the most Detroit team I've ever seen as like a fan since like the 2010 season when I started watching. I just think they've built a team that reminds me a little bit of 04.
They're
And the fact of like there's no real drop off from your bench
They're
to
gonna
your starters.
they're gonna give really good teams a fit, in my opinion.
Right.
They're not gonna beat them, but they're gonna give them a fit
Right.
and make it hard. And that's all you really ask as a Detroit fan. You're not gonna go.
Right,
from-
and all this goes to crap if we have the same health issues that we did last year. Blake goes down again.
Yeah.
If D Rose isn't playing, then obviously we have no shot. But if our team can stay, for the most part, healthy, I think we have a shot at making the playoffs.
Yeah, I
But-
agree.
Some of the worst signings, Bertans is up there for sure. I like Bertans as a player, but I don't like 5-year, $80 million for Bertans. What do you think about that?
I'm just really confused on the Wizards' direction. Like, where do they want to go? Because, they
If
traded.
you want a guy like Rui to take that next step, he can't really be playing along Bertans. Like,
and they
at the same
just
position.
drafted
Avdija, who can
Avdija,
play
who
the 4
plays
as
the
well.
3 and the 4. So, they got 3 guys now that play the 3 and the 4. Bertans mostly plays the 4, but, they can all play the 3 and the 4. And I don't know what their direction is. Is it youth or win now? Because I guess they didn't really have a choice. I'd rather have Russell Westbrook than John Wall. So they had to get rid of John Wall. Maybe that's all they had on the table was that deal.
Yeah, I would say most people have Washington as a playoff team. But I think if every team in the East stays healthy, which obviously will not happen because
No.
it's basketball, but
Yeah.
I had them as the 9th best team in the East. I think
They're
I
right
had
there with
Indiana at 7, and I had Atlanta at 8. I think it's better.
Those 3 teams are all right there. It just
Yeah,
depends
all of
on
them have a shot. I
health
think
and
really
performance.
almost every team in the East has a shot at making the playoffs.
Yeah.
If everything goes right, they stay away from the COVID, and maybe some guys surprise us.
Yeah.
Shoot Cleveland. I mean, they got Kevin Love, Drummond. They have a shot with Drummond.
Sexton can score the ball like
Or
anybody
maybe
else.
Garland takes a step forward.
Um,
But yeah, I mean that's not really what we're supposed to be talking about. But
yeah.
Gordon Hayward
Yeah,
to
I
the
was gonna
Charlotte
say,
Hornets.
Let's talk about
This man's agent. I need this guy. I need this guy in my life. Whoever he is, shout out to that guy.
Yeah.
4 years, 120 million for you guys that don't know that.
I had gotten a text from my mom the other day about how a mall near where I live had there was a robbery, and I thought she was talking about Gordon Hayward because when I read that man coming off a serious injury and a down year, got a 4-year, $120 million contract with a young team that's trying to rebuild. I did not understand. I guess it makes sense why they're trying to rebuild every year because they sign guys to those type of contracts.
Right.
Last time we talked on this podcast a few years ago, we talked about how they had all the worst contracts in the league.
This has the potential to be one. In like year 3, year 4, when he's at the end of his prime right now, I would say he's maybe got a couple years left.
I would say even without the injury, he would still be going towards the end of his prime.
Yeah.
So with the injury,
in the year like 23, 24, this could look really bad. Like, who do they have on? This could be Batum 2.0. Who else is Bismack Biyombo 2.0? Like literally every player on their team is.
Zeller, everybody.
I mean, I kind of get why, because you have to like overpay as a small market team, but overpaying for players of value, not for guys like Cody Zeller, Bismack Biyombo, and old Nicholas Batum. And
I don't see a way where this turns out to be a good contract for anyone other than Gordon Hayward, because say he has a bounce back year, no one's predicting. Say he puts up 22 a game, efficiently, is the best player on the team. They're gonna get 16 wins out of that. So I don't understand where they're going with that. You know,
MJ back at it again.
Yeah,
we thought he was done with the bad deals because he hadn't made some in a while, but I think he's just getting started really.
Yeah,
with another era of terrible contracts.
Yeah,
I think they're gonna be fun to watch.
Oh,
that's one thing, but I just don't think they're gonna win.
They'd be fun to watch no matter who's on their team, as long as the mellow ball's out there. So it doesn't really matter.
I've heard people talk about them as a playoff team, and I just can't see it. A lot of stuff would have to happen to the top teams.
I think they're going to be in the lottery next year again and get another top pick and
like top 5.
You know, I guess they'll
need a 2 guard next to Melo.
The only thing I could see is for this signing is maybe they're against another bottom of the barrel team like Cleveland or I don't know, someone around there, and LaMelo has the best game of his rookie year, and they need someone to hit a shot at the end of the game. Maybe Gordon Hayward's that guy, and he'll finish with he'll hit a 3-pointer and finish with 6 points. But
I would say Hayward's value is about half of that contract. 15 to 18 million is about where he's at right now.
And I like Gordon Hayward a lot.
I really do. He used to be one of my favorite players when he was on the Jazz, but obviously he got hurt and then hurt again, and then hurt again. And that's the risky part of his signing, because he's old and he's had injury problems time and time again.
I thought he was going to be one of the slept-on signings before he signed this deal. Like, someone's going to get him cheap.
For not for a max contract.
Maybe a team like Detroit or someone was going to get him for cheap, and he'll end up being a great leader and player for them, but... like I said, I
was here in Indiana, which would have been...
Yeah, that would have been interesting. I think we can all agree that the only person that won this trade is Gordon Hayward and his agent.
I don't think Gordon Hayward expected to get $30 million, to be honest.
No.
Couple other overpays. Jordan Clarkson, I've heard a lot of people talk bad about this contract. 4 years, $52 million.
Yeah.
So that's like $13 million a year.
Yeah.
I don't think that's awful for a 6-man. What do you think?
It's interesting.
I'll say this: the length of the contract doesn't make sense to me.
4 years. 4 years.
4 years for at best is a 6-man.
And I think Utah took a big step back, not just by default, because so many teams in the West took a step forward.
Yeah,
so
they're bringing back the same team.
I don't know if giving Jordan Clarkson 4 years, $52 million is the answer.
No.
And you use that money to go find someone else, like a third of Gordon Hayward.
They're just gonna be a solid team again. Really, I don't see them as like a championship contender, but But yeah, let's move on to teams.
Yeah, just overall winners.
I made a list here. I got as winners. I got Lakers, Hawks, Sixers, Suns, Timberwolves, Blazers, and Bucks. I don't know if you had anybody else, but let's talk about the Sixers. We haven't talked about them.
I was gonna say
I'll start, but I would just say, in terms of talent, I wouldn't say they got better, but fit alongside Embiid and Simmons is so much better, and I think because of that, they'll have a shot at winning the East.
Let's start with the coach. I mean, Doc Rivers. You know,
he's hard to judge because he's won a title, but at the same time, he's choked so many playoffs.
But I think if anyone's gonna step in and tell Ben Simmons he has to shoot threes, it's gonna be Doc Rivers.
Yeah.
And if anyone's gonna step in and tell Joel Embiid to play for real, you know, because I think we can see sometimes he likes
get in shape.
I
feel like we've been saying that since
Doc
like
Rivers, you know,
2015.
And the one thing I'm really happy about Philadelphia is they didn't fall. It's not over yet. It could happen at any point, especially with the Harden speculation. But they didn't fall for what the media's been telling them, is that either Embiid or Simmons has to go, because I don't think that's true. They're too young to say that those guys aren't a match. They have so much star power and potential with those two, and I think we have to give it a few more years, at least a year or two, and we'll see what happens there. But with the addition of Seth Curry, I mean, I've been saying it since he was drafted. You give Ben Simmons shooters, and you're going to win games.
Right. I don't think it's right to give up on all-star caliber players that haven't even hit their prime yet. Like, Simmons is like 23, and then Embiid's like 26, and it seems like he's been in the league for a lot longer than that.
And they were in a Game 7 of the semifinals, and a shot from Kawhi Leonard that rattled in after three drops to...
Like, they lost to the champion.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. I don't think you can... I just don't understand that belief to just separate
And,
them
obviously
already.
the 2019 offseason completely set them back. A lot of signings that didn't make sense. I like Tobias Harris. I like his fit on the team.
Yeah.
But giving him the max, he's not a max player. I think we can all agree on that. And then the Horford signing made no sense at the time, and then watching them, it just didn't look right.
It still doesn't make sense.
They got swept in the first round. They were definitely the losers of last season, but for this offseason, Daryl Morey's got some guys now. He's got a lot more shooting than he did last year. So I'm excited to see what the Sixers can do this year.
I'm trying to think of all the shooters they got on that team. So
Seth Curry and Danny Green were the additions.
Thibault can shoot to an extent.
Tobias can shoot it.
Furkan Korkmaz.
Embiid shoots well for a center.
Tobias, I mean, they got shooters. They got guys that you ask them to go out there and shoot.
It's not like the strength of their team, but it's there. Like,
yeah,
it's more along the lines of what they had 2 years ago, going with J.J. Redick and Jimmy as the wings.
Yeah. You wish they would have kept Redick, though, but,
So, Sixers, they got a shot in the East this year. I don't know if anybody else is giving them a shot, but I sure am.
I think the biggest winner, other than the Lakers and maybe the Hawks, to me is the Blazers.
Yep.
I have the Blazers as a top 3 to 4 seed. I know that's a little...
I do, too.
Okay.
You're not the only one.
I think on paper, this is by far the best team Damian Lillard's ever had. Robert Covington. Think about Robert Covington. He's one of those guys. Shout out to the Through the Wire podcast. I heard this on there. But Robert Covington is one of those guys. Every time he leaves a team, and then we assess that team that he left the next year, we always go, they could really use a Robert Covington right now. You look at Minnesota, we said, they could use Robert Covington. You look at Philadelphia, another guy that they could use right now. Who's another team? Houston. All these teams could use a Robert Covington because every team in the league can, and he is perfect fit for them.
He's a perfect fit for championship caliber teams.
They
Good
lost.
on both sides of the floor.
They lost Whiteside, which we knew would happen because they just couldn't pay him, and too much room, not enough room. But they bring back Nurkic, who, when healthy, is top 5 to 6 center in my opinion. They still have John Collins. They re-signed Ennis
Collins.
I mean Zach Collins.
Who knows? Maybe they trade for John Collins.
They still have Zach Collins.
You heard it here first.
Brought back Ennis Cantor, got him back in Portland. He played great there. Harry Giles, if he could stay healthy. I mean, they had Gary Trent's emergence from last year. You know, they got weapons, man. And if Dame and CJ are hot along with all those guys come playoff time, they're dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
They're big.
That was really their biggest problem last year was wings, and then just honestly the ability to stay healthy. I mean, Dame was hurt. I mean, that's why they almost missed the playoffs. If the bubble didn't happen, there was no chance that they were going to make the playoffs. And
No, they
who
were.
knows what would have happened with the team that was coming into the season? They were hoping to maybe championship contenders, winning a title.
Yeah, they were. Because
Obviously that didn't happen. They lost. They lost to a better team in the Lakers, but it was still impressive that even with all the unfortunate injuries, they were still able to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. Blazers are definitely one of my, I don't want to say title favorites, but favorites in the Western Conference.
And then another team that took a jump is the bubble champion Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, they 8-0.
I think really the only notable one is Chris Paul. And that's really the only one you need to talk about because he's an all-star caliber player. I think he gets Devin Booker to another level, and I think he gets DeAndre Ayton to another level for sure. Ayton's a guy that I think is going to take a massive jump this year with CP3 at the point guard. Ayton's a guy that last season he produced really well when he played, but he was suspended 25 games for that anti-drug policy that apparently he said he didn't do or something.
You know,
stuff
no one
happens.
ever does
Stuff
anything,
happens.
you know. So
Right.
here's my question, and this is to compliment Chris Paul and how he'll help DeAndre Ayton. Speaking of another DeAndre, in terms of his career, what has DeAndre Jordan done post Chris Paul?
Really, he's just been bounced from team to team. Really.
Yeah. Blake Griffin's an exception because he's so talented, but he's had injuries. Big men in general, Steven Adams had the best year of his career under Chris Paul, which says a lot because Westbrook.
Clint Capella got paid because of Chris Paul.
Clint Capella got paid because of Chris Paul. And then you see Westbrook.
Chris Paul's the homie, man, for those centers.
You see Westbrook came in to Houston, and Westbrook got better with Capella gone. So you see the difference in what Chris Paul does for big men. So I agree. Ayton is more Ayton's probably the most offensively skilled big man that Chris Paul.
He reminds me a lot of Embiid, who we just talked about a little bit ago.
So I agree. He's gonna take a big jump. And then he just takes pressure off of Devin Booker. Devin Booker had to not only be their scorer, which Chris Paul can do, but he had to be their playmaker
and scorer all in one.
Devin Booker can play make, but you want him shooting the ball, and he'll be out there scoring the peel. And
if they get a repeat of last year's CP3, then
I don't even think
they're
need
definitely a playoff team.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's talk about the Bucks.
Yeah, we can talk about the Bucks.
You could say what you want about the Drew Holiday trade. Maybe they gave up too much, but at the end of the day, the ultimate goal is getting Giannis back in Milwaukee so they can compete for a title. And Drew Holiday is a guy that they were missing last year. They were missing that perimeter scorer, perimeter playmaker because Bledsoe, for whatever reason, just doesn't show up in the playoffs. And Drew Holiday has proven to. So the Bucks got better for sure.
Yeah, we said this last time, but getting Drew Holiday was simply about keeping Giannis happy, keeping him there. Hopefully they can, because you'd like to see a big free agent stay in a small market and just keep them competitive. But Drew Holiday, him being there is going to help Giannis a lot. Defensively, they're going to be ridiculous. I mean, who's their worst starting defender?
Out of Middleton, maybe? And he's above average, I would say, on the defensive end.
Well, I'm trying to think. So they'll have Holiday probably at the point. Does
DiVincenzo at the two.
Clamps up though. That's his biggest strength right now. So I think Middleton probably is there.
And he's not even like a liability.
He's above average. So they're going to be the best defensive team in the league. They got to be. They already were last year. So It'll be interesting to
Drew
see.
Holiday was a very underrated pickup, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But, yeah, let's move on to the losers of free agency. I could only come up with really
2.5.
2.5.
Yeah.
Like, Houston's a loser if, like, I have them as a winner and a loser because if Harden doesn't play, that's an MVP caliber player that you don't have. I don't think it's a championship caliber player. I've said that before. Sticking to it, but
Yeah.
if Harden is not playing, they're okay. They're an okay team, right? With John Wall, Cousins. But at the same time,
Imagine if those guys get hurt again. They're
they're toast. Christian was your best player. PJ.
Cade Cunningham to Houston if
Yeah.
that happens. But
Yeah.
so hopefully Harden gets his act together and comes back there, and they're a playoff team easily with Harden. They're a playoff team with Harden and
I think
nobody else.
Yeah.
But
Moving on from Houston, I think Denver, another team in the West that,
they just lost a lot.
yeah, who'd they lose? Jeremy Grant
Jeremy Grant,
and
Plumlee.
Plumlee.
Yep. And they did.
And it's weird because they offered Jeremy Grant the same amount of money as Detroit, and Jeremy Grant's like, no, I want to be in Detroit. I want a bigger role and prove myself as maybe an all-star caliber player.
Yeah,
But
I'm guessing they told him, you're going to lose minutes to Millsap and MPJ, so he wanted to go to somewhere where he could get a role, and he's
and I
gonna have
think
a
he
role
can
in
play
Detroit.
alongside either one because he can play the 3 or 4, but he can also guard all 5 positions.
Yeah,
It's,
no, he's one of those guys that
versatility
can
has been the thing
legitimately-
that he's held his head on for the entirety of his career. But
You hear about guys that they say can guard 1 through 5, but there's only a handful of them.
Right.
Jeremy Grant's one of those guys.
Yeah.
So he's
versatility is one of the most important things for modern day basketball for sure. And Jeremy Grant is the definition of versatility, and they lost him. And that's
big.
a team that was in the conference finals in the bubble last year, and I don't see them getting back there. I think too many teams got better in the West, and they took another step back. But the counter to that is MPJ taking a step forward.
And Jamal Murray staying where he was in the bubble. If he's
Yeah.
where he is in the bubble, they compete with anybody.
MPJ and Jamal are the X factors for me
Yeah,
in the
I agree.
playoffs.
I agree. And
Because MPJ is a guy that, at his best, I think he has the potential to be a guy that can get 30 on any given night. Like, he can score from anywhere, and then he's got the frame to be good on defense, but he hasn't obviously proven to be good on defense.
Health is the only thing with MPJ, and it's always been the only thing.
Right.
No one's ever questioned his game. So.
Number 1 guy coming out of high school for a reason. Like,
Number 1 guy coming out of high school, he would.
and I was surprised, even with the injury issues, at
how much he fell in the draft.
right, even with his injury issues, I was surprised how far he fell. And Denver's just a team that continuously grabs guys that are overlooked because of maybe it's an injury or they struggled more than people thought they would in college.
That's another thing. I mean, if Bol takes,
Bol,
if he plays the way that he did in the few minutes he played in the bubble, they're a problem. I saw something recently, some highlights of him just in one of those like an open scrimmage, and he was pulling up mid-range, block shots.
He's ridiculous.
Running, dunking. He's terrifying.
He's what people thought Thon Maker was gonna be.
Yeah. I remember him and Thon Maker when they were in high school around the same time. Obviously, Thon Maker was older, but they were like similar players.
Thon Maker could be 40. We don't know.
Yeah, who knows? 40, he could be 16. But
That
they were.
would explain why he sucks.
Yeah. They were similar players, and Bol obviously has carried on that talent. Thon Maker somehow disguised having it in the first place.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they're definitely Denver.
They have a chance to prove us wrong for sure, with the
Yeah.
young guys taking a step forward. But
Yeah.
in terms of veteran leadership and depth, they didn't take the right step forward. But
I agree.
and then this one's up for debate, and it's my Detroit Pistons.
Oh man.
I've heard mixed feelings on this for the most part. I've seen titles like, was Detroit drunk during free agency? What are they doing? Are they trying to contend or are they trying to rebuild? But what did you think about the...
So if we're talking simply on free agency, I would call it a loss because they made some questionable decisions. But if we're talking offseason in general, they had a top 3 draft, which masks a lot of their holes in free agency.
Yeah.
And we don't know yet. Plumlee could be decent. Jeremy Grant, I don't think he's a bad signing. Okafor is weird. I don't understand that. But
Apparently, I saw Okafor lately. Not in real life, but I've seen pictures. But Okafor lost a lot of weight, and from what he said in an interview, he has a 3-point shot now. And so
that's world's difference.
So for us getting him at a minimum, that might be a steal. Who knows? If he's the same player, obviously, it's like, why did we get him? But
and how much can a team like Detroit, who's probably going to be a lottery team again, how much can they lose a free agency where they're just trying to get better every day? Like, I don't know. None of these contracts are super long, so.
I mean, 3 years.
Yeah.
I would say is pretty much a long-term contract.
Yeah.
As a Pistons fan, I was surprised at like the length.
That's Plumlee's on a 3-year.
Plumlee's on a 3-year deal. What was it? 3-year, $24 million, and then he has a 10% trade kicker if we decide to trade him. Okay. Which the 10% wouldn't go to Detroit; it would go to the next team that gets his salary. So he'd be paid what $9.5 million after that. But
yeah,
he's gonna be our starting center. So $8 million for a starting center, I guess it's not that bad. Who knows? I just think. I mean, it's just who knows. I don't really have any words for it. It's just like maybe they know something that we don't, and that's what I'm hoping as a fan, obviously.
But that's why they're kind of a loser, and it's debatable because
right.
Who knows? Because who cares? Because at the end of the day, they're just trying to rebuild. So, they're not.
They just have a lot of guys in the front office that aren't willing to just go like a certain direction. Like we get 4 draft picks. I was like, oh wow, we have a direction here. We're getting the young guys, and then we go out and sign Jeremy Grant and Mason Plumlee, and Josh Jackson is a guy that he's a flyer. Same with Okafor. Those are guys that we thought were going to be a lot better than they actually are, but maybe Detroit's their home.
You know, the crime rates are really high in Detroit. I don't know if Josh Jackson should be here, but I hope so. I hope he finds a home because he's got talent. I mean, it's not what we thought it was, but he's a guy that belongs in the league if he can.
It was just really confusing, but I'm hoping that there was a reason behind the madness.
Yeah. As
a Pistons fan, I'm optimistic. Not sure why I'm optimistic because after 10 years of watching the Pistons be so like boring and mediocre, I was looking forward to something young and exciting.
And
we're not gonna get that. We have like a mix of the two though, which in a way is good because the young guys have mentors to take that step forward to what their potential could be. So
you guys are just looking to fill seats at the end of the day when that's possible again.
Oh yeah, Jello coming to Detroit too.
Oh yeah, that's a big move.
That's the thing with this contract. It's exhibit 10, and it's non-guaranteed for one deal. So he's most likely not going to make the 15-man roster. I think we have 17 guys under contract. So bringing Jello in is like, how many guys are we going to cut with guaranteed contracts?
Yeah.
So Jello probably won't make the 15-man team, but he'll definitely get a lot of run in the G League for sure.
Yeah. You're just hoping Killian Hayes can be that silver lining, and fill seats, like I said.
From what I've seen, he's really good, but
because
that remains to be seen.
I've been to one NBA game. It was the Pistons and the Thunder a few years ago at Little Caesars Arena, and I said to my dad, I was like, we must be here pretty early, but it was tip off.
Yeah, that's literally how it is. It's
nobody
crazy.
there.
It's like you look out. So I want to say it was last season or a couple of seasons ago. I went to a game. I was on the upper deck because my family's cheap. That's how it is. But yeah, we were on the upper deck, and it's just looking down there is so depressing because you got a product on the court. Like, guys are trying so hard.
And it's Detroit. Like, what are people doing in Detroit other than going to Pistons games? They're doing something.
Like, we're getting attendance for every other sports team. That's the thing. Like, the Tigers bring in fans. The Red Wings bring in.
And none of them are good either.
None of them are.
What's their reasoning? I don't know.
Something.
I guess because
It's
they may not be good, but the other
It's
teams
frustrating.
put stars on the floor.
it's frustrating, but at the same time, this year there's not going to be any fans in the crowd, so
Yeah, it won't matter.
it's not going to be any different
Yeah,
than it
no,
was.
it was
the
same old,
past.
same old.
But yeah,
But yeah, so is
I
that
think
all
that-
we have
yeah,
for this episode?
I think that's all we got. I can say right now, we promise you guys there won't be a 3-week delay between
Yeah.
episodes. AJ's healthy. I'm healthy now.
Yep.
Hopefully, until we come up with the next one. But yeah, this one should be out Monday. What is it today?
10th.
Yeah, it's the 10th. So what is that? The 13th or 14th? Yeah, it'll be out next Monday. So yeah, be on the look for that. If you guys did enjoy, make sure to drop a like, and we'll see you guys in episode 4.
All right, see you. Thanks for tuning in.